Hi, Naheed. Welcome to 11 Questions.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Are you a tea person or a coffee person?
I'm a tea person, like originally. The coffee I drink here is like Nescafe instant coffee, so I can't, it's a disgrace to call myself a coffee person. But I can't get good desi chai in here. So I don't know, like the tea bag thing doesn't do it for me. Kind of just pathetically drinking like instant coffee all the time. It's very sad.
If you could have the real chai with any person, living or dead, who would you choose?
I'd have to choose Arundhati Roy. The God of Small Things is kind of what turned me into a writer. It's had such a huge influence on my life, and I read it every June or July. I do like a ritual reading of the book, and I'm still surprised by it. I mean, it's going on maybe 15 years now or more, but I'm still surprised by it. I'm still amazed by it. It's a real talisman for me. So, I'd
That's
love to
awesome.
buy Arundhati a cup of tea and say thank you.
Did you always know you will be a writer one day?
No, I've always been a reader. Since I was a very young kid, I found reading a way to escape and to kind of switch off and also sometimes just make sense of my life. Always had books around me, but I think that I didn't give myself permission, or rather I grew up in a place where there was no library. There weren't people weren't reading books and talking about books and talking about being writers and stuff like that. So I really couldn't give myself permission to quote unquote be a writer. I thought that's just some fancy job that only very polished people get to do. um, so I think it was much later in life that I kind of allowed myself to believe that I could be a writer.
And now that you are a writer, it involves a great deal of creativity and discipline. How do you juggle that with rest of your life?
Very badly. I don't know. I think that I try to arrange my life around writing, and I don't write every single day. I try to be as patient with myself as possible. The process is different for every person. So, some people just believe in sitting down and getting things down on the page and then, editing later. But there are times when I just don't have the energy to do that. And so I try to be as forgiving of myself as possible and not get upset or kind of have inner voice that criticizes the fact that, oh, you're supposed to be writing. If you can be a writer and not write, is what I'm trying to say. You are a writer whether you're writing or not. I mean, I try to have self-compassion. I don't always succeed, but it's definitely an ongoing practice to be kinder to myself.
And now your latest book, A Mirror Made of Rain.
Yeah, I have a copy. Yep. Here it is.
I love the cover.
Thank you. Yes, I love it too.
Tell us what it's about.
A Mirror Made of Rain is basically, it revolves around the life of this young Indian woman named Numi, and it's about her growing up in a very small conservative town in India and how she's kind of living under the cloud or the shadow of her mother, who is depressed and is an alcoholic. And as the story progresses, Numi becomes more and more like her mother, even though she's trying to break free of the same, the inheritance of that trauma. It's basically about how we are all conditioned to perceive ourselves through the eyes of others. So how society is a mirror that we're constantly supposed to look into and assess our self-worth.
Were there any issues or topics close to your heart that you find important to include in your writing?
It was important for me to be as compassionate and empathetic towards my characters, who are not always perfect. Especially my main character, Numi, and her mother. They are, quote unquote, unlikable women. They struggle with addictions, with self-image. So it was really important for me to portray that in a way that exuded understanding and empathy rather than judgment or kind of priming my readers to take one side over the other.
And when you were writing these characters, was there something that was challenging for you?
I think just getting the language right was really challenging. I am very interested in language, and I think that language is behavior. So for me, just getting the words really right on the page, the sequence of words, and trying to get as much as what was in my head onto the page and across to readers was the biggest challenge.
And what about the publishing part? How was that like?
Well, a lot of publishing is really out of your hands. So you have to write the best book you can possibly write. In my experience, you have to have the book pretty much done by the time it's sent out to your agent and your editors. There are many hurdles, right? Like we can talk about this for hours. But at the end of the day, all you can do is write the best book you can write. And everything else is kind of a mixture of luck and timing and various elements go into it.
We talked a lot about your writing and your book. Now, outside of writing, what do you like to do?
I'm a big gardener. I love plants. So you
I
can see
that.
little spider plant, which is having spider plant babies. I don't know what to do with them because there's so many. I'm gonna have to just cut them off at some point. But I really enjoy growing things. So yeah, I have an interest. It's a new interest, but I've really enjoyed tending to my garden and watching things grow, and it just gives me a lot of joy and pleasure.
And you mentioned that you are a reader first. So
yeah.
Now I have a tricky question. If you were to be deserted on an island with only 3 books, which ones would you pick?
Wow, that is a very tricky question. Well, God of Small Things, The God of Small Things is a no-brainer, obviously. Then I don't know, it really depends on the year that I'm stranded on the island. Like if you catch 2016 Naheed versus 2020 Naheed versus now, there's so many books that mean so much to me. But if you ask me on the spot, which books do you want, it's just your mind just goes blank. So, but The God of Small Things for sure, 100% would be in that island.
For our last question, if you were to pick one interesting life experience to share with us, what would you tell us today?
We were talking about the fact that I like gardening a lot. It took me a while to understand why I enjoyed gardening so much. And it was because there's no control. You don't have control over what's going to happen once you put the seed in the ground. The formula is simple, like sunlight, water, blah, everything. But beyond that, you have no control what is going to happen. So it was a very nice lesson in how to let go in a way of things, but also be creative. And I found a lot of parallels between that and writing, because even in writing, you can sow a seed of an idea or put down something on paper, but you don't know what's going to happen and how it's going to grow. And you kind of have to relinquish control. Finding that synergy between these two activities was kind of lovely for me.
All right, Naheed, thank you for answering my questions. Before we wrap up our chat today, if listeners want to buy your book or get in touch with you, how can they do that?
All the usual. It's going to be available in bookstores. If there are listeners based on the East Coast and based in New York City, I have events which are all on my Instagram page, and I'm constantly tweeting them out and stuff. So I'd love to see readers in person, and I'd love to talk about the book. And I'm so excited for the book to be out in the world.
Best of luck with your book.
Thank you.
Thank you again for being my guest. Thank you so much.
Bye.